Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem of my Blitz game number 311. My opponent played e4, and I played e5, hoping to get an old-fashioned king's pawn game, and knight f3 and knight c6 we go. So it looks like normal lines, and I'm expecting bishop c4 or bishop b5, the Italian game, the Ruy Lopez, or maybe even d5, the d4, the Scotch game, or knight c3, the four knights. But instead he plays, or c3, I forget the name of that one, but instead he plays bishop e2. So this is like a Hungarian defense reversed. Bishop e2 can be played in response to bishop c4. Bishop e7 can be played in response to bishop c4, and that's called the Hungarian defense. So I guess the best move here is knight f6. I was thinking, you know, a lot of times it's a good idea if you can get away with it to go ahead and play d5 right away, open things up in these king pawn openings. So black gets a chance to play d3 and he isn't d5 rather. Black gets a chance to play d5 and he isn't punished for it. Then usually that means he's doing well. But here my opponent could just play knight c3 and kick my queen, and gain a tempo and probably be in pretty good shape. Instead, d3 was played. And after d3, the position is more or less equal. So basically, the Ponziani, that was the name of this opening with c3. Anyway, basically this opening is about even at this point. So white has given up the opening advantage, but we continue developing, and nothing too awful happens. I mean, giving up the opening advantage is something that happens in most games sooner or later, unless you're at the very top level. And sometimes you can maintain an opening advantage all through the game and still end up in a draw. It's not so simple to win sometimes. Okay, but knight g5, this is probably a mistake. Well, the engine doesn't really give it a real bad score, but it seems like it's just a waste of time. After h6, knight really doesn't have a lot of good to do. Now he could continue. Let's show the line the engine is giving us wait for white to maintain equality. He could have gone knight c3, kicking my queen first, and then queen drops back to d8. Yeah, it doesn't really have any other good squares. And knight g to e4. And that's what I realized after he played this. You could think of this as just a rerouting maneuver to get the knight to e4, which is a good post, and induce this pawn move h6, which might be a weakness in some cases. So not too bad, but instead he played bishop f3, hitting my queen. So my queen dropped back to d8. I guess I could have gone to some of these other squares. Still about even. And even here he could play knight to e4, but he had a different idea. He takes my knight with check, messing up my pawns. But this is not a big deal, actually, because I have the bishop pair. You know, he's given me some open files here. This is still fine for black. So the pawn damage is not particularly significant yet. It may be later in the endgame if we get that far. And he goes queen e2, attacking my pawn, but allowing me to take his knight. So that queen e2 move is a clear mistake. So up until this point it was still about even. Now the engine even likes white a little bit after just dropping the knight back to f3. Attacking my pawn. Very simple move. So queen e2, he may have been misled by this sort of false tactic, or pseudo tactic. Queen here, check. Queen takes pawn check is a fork between the bishop, which is undefended. I mean, that is a loose piece there, and the king. Looks like it's winning a piece, but unfortunately for white, the bishop can just retreat back to e7, blocking the check, so meeting both threats with one move. So there is no tactic there. It's a pseudo tactic. It looks like a tactic, but it's not really there. So after I take his pawn, the queen takes e5 check, bishop e7. Could still be played, but he chose to play bishop takes g5. And now I just drop my bishop back and defended the pawn. So I'm a piece up, and it should be an easy win, but things get complicated later, or maybe not complicated, but it actually took a bit of maneuvering to win this game. So I thought the later parts of this were interesting as well. So both sides develop knight c3, queen e7. knight e4, good post for the knight. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to castle or not. Putting the king on this next to an open file didn't look too attractive. So I just keep developing my pieces and just waiting to see. He plays b3, and I go bishop d5. If I can just exchange off some pieces, I should be in a winning endgame here. He goes f3, defending the knight. I was sort of expecting him to take my knight and disorder my pawns. Eventually this happens. He takes back here, and now he's got two pieces hitting my knight here. I play queen e6 to unpin the knight, and so here he decides to take the knight and mess up my pawns. And it gives him some pressure on the open f-file. And at this point I'm glad I haven't castled. Although I could, oh, it's queen f3, it's black's move there, queen f3. I could consider castling queenside. I think the engine recommends that at some point or another. But first I need to defend this pawn, queen g3. And right here, yeah, just castling queenside is an option here. Play rook g6, harassing the queen first. The queen goes to h4, and then and now castling queenside is a recommended move. I go king e7, just holding onto the pawns in the center and allowing the rook to come over. So it's similar in some ways to castling queenside, but maybe the king is a little bit more exposed over here. On the other hand, the king does defend these pawns, which can come in handy. Anyway, he tries to double on the f-file, and I go bishop, cancel that, bishop to, oh no, I play rook a8. I double on the g-file, putting pressure here, so he plays g3, and now rook g4, cancel that, rook g4. Okay, I'm harassing his queen a little bit. The queen still has fine squares. Now there is a nice tactic here that I thought about briefly, but I didn't think it worked. But rook here check. You know, it's a check to the king, and there's a line onto the queen here. I thought though he could just take back, defending, but it's not defended. It's one of those things you always have to look out for. Because of this pin, you know, he wasn't really defending the queen. It only had the appearance of a defense. So now I have a queen and a bishop against two rooks, and that's pretty good. So after rook takes g3, rather than rook takes, it's actually a little better to, let's see, was there anything else after rook takes? Well, just queen takes h3, yeah. So I'm just winning the queen there for a rook. If he takes with the queen, it's slightly better. He has two rooks versus a queen and a bishop. I think that's the same piece balance we ended up with in the other line. Let's take a look. Rook takes, queen takes, rook takes. Yeah, two rooks against a queen and a bishop. Okay, the engine just likes this, the other position slightly better than this position, but the material is the same. And I'm just winning. So, of course, I'm a piece up to start with, so I don't really need to find these tactics in order to win the game, but that might have helped out, made it a little bit quicker. Anyway, I developed my bishop to c5, hit the king with check. King goes to g2, and I drop my queen back to c8 with a double threat. I mean, it's not a double threat. I'm threatening to trap the queen. My queen is doing, I'm threatening to trap white's queen by playing rook to h8. What I meant by a double, it's not a double threat, but the queen is actually doing two jobs here. It's supporting the rook on g4 here, so the queen can't take it, and it's threatening rook to h8. So he should play rook f5. The rook comes here to f5. Yeah, it leaves this pawn hanging, so I can no longer play rook h8. So that's the best way to defend. Instead, he played rook a to f1, continuing his idea of doubling on the f-file. And I was a little worried this tactic was no longer working because I might get into a perpetual check here. But eventually I decided it still worked, because mainly because of my bishop. My bishop guards this key square, f8, so I'm not going to get stuck in a perpetual check here. So now his queen is trapped. And so he has nothing better than to do than to take this pawn. I take his queen. He takes here with check. And now, actually, I make a mistake here. I should just go directly back to e8, which will stop him from ever coming to f8. Instead, I step back this way. I'm not sure why. So that gives him a few more opportunities. he takes my rook, and then I play rook here, check. So it discovers an attack on his king. I just want to get rid of one of these rooks. And let's see, if we back up a little bit, if instead of, because I went to king d8, he had the opportunity to play rook f8 check. Just wanted to show this. This is best play for white. And that wouldn't have been possible in the other line. But this wins the queen. Then he can take here. And I have one rook, and he doesn't, but he has a bunch of pawns here, and actually this might be a little bit tricky. So this might have been an interesting way for white to continue the game, and in any case it would be better than what he played. So he took the rook right away, and after this check, I'm getting rid of one of his rooks, and I'm keeping my queen. So I take, and he takes, and bring my queen out. So now we reach a situation where I have a queen and a bishop against a rook, and I should win easily, but it's a little bit hard. The queen and the bishop somehow are not coordinating very well, and all his squares around his king are protected. So there's some maneuvering that goes on. He gets his rook active, brings his pieces out. I try to get my king active, and he starts moving his pawns forward. This is a very good plan to get some counterplay here. And I'm trying to stop them, but eventually I realize if I just hold on to the pawns here, I'm not making any progress. I'm just sort of holding him at bay. I haven't won anything. So I'm trying to get some activity against the loose pawns. The thing is, he has very few pawn weaknesses. This pawn is weak back here, but everything else can be protected. And that pawn can be protected by the rook. So there's a little bit of maneuvering. I try and find the optimum position for the queen where I'm attacking this pawn and I'm not getting chased by the king. And finally I decide the threat of these pawns is just too great. And I sack the bishop for 2 pawns. And now we have a pure queen versus rook endgame with pawns. And he still has a pawn advantage, and he has a better pawn structure. And it is possible in some cases for white to hold a draw with the fortress, with the pawns and the rook making a fortress, and white and black, in this case, black not being able to break through. So he would have to establish that, he would have to blockade all my pawns. And he doesn't manage to do that. He's in check here, and then I start pushing this pawn forward. So he might consider the move c4 there to create a blockade and try and stop me. But that would leave him with a couple of pawn weaknesses. He would have 2 pawn weaknesses, and I would get to maneuver my queen around and maybe win some material. So that's a risky decision, hard to say. He brought his king over to defend the pawns, and I do some more maneuvering, trying to get my queen into the best position, attacking as many things as I can. But eventually, in order to make progress, I'm going to have to sacrifice another pawn and break through. So I push this pawn at a moment when there's this pressure on the e-pawn here. So he doesn't want to take. He doesn't want to take with the d-pawn and allow me to take here with check. And well, it doesn't win the rook, but I would get a passed pawn over here. So he takes the other way. He takes with the b-pawn. But now this leaves a weakness over here which can't be defended. So first I play my king up to c5. I probably should have gone after that pawn right away. He goes king f5. And then I play king to b4. Okay, so I'm going after this pawn with my king. And now it's too late for him to defend it. He plays rook to g8, trying to come around this way, and I grab the a-pawn. So now I have a passed pawn, and so that was my strategy for winning the game. You have to sacrifice your pawn to create some breakthroughs, but once I've got a passed pawn now, this should be a straightforward win. So that was the most instructive part, probably, was when I played that pawn break. Okay, so he tries to trap my king over here, but there's no way he can do it. At some point here I can also think about just taking the rook, but not here. Now I need to get my passed pawn further advanced. So after some maneuvering, I managed to. He moved his rook. I went here, he went there, and I could have just taken the rook. So that would have been an easy win too. But I was intent on passing my pawn, getting my pawn passed, and then right here, with this check. I could just take the rook here, but it's even faster to queen with check here, and there's going to be a checkmate in a few moves. And that's how the game ended. So leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.